According to the US authorities, it's humanitarian aid, it's bottled water, it's baby milk, it's things like that, which they say are in urgent need inside Georgia. But it's a very controversial move, of course, Sasha, sending these US warships into the Black Sea, into this Georgian port to deliver aid, and it's something that the Russians have been commenting on. The Russian Foreign Minister yesterday, Sergei Lavrov, saying that it's very unusual for warships to deliver aid. You can see there's a welcoming ceremony taking place right now with Georgian officials, Georgian military, as well as Georgian civilians, greeting US personnel as they disembark from that US Coast Guard ship, the USS Dallas, as it prepares to deliver that humanitarian aid. There's been some controversy as well, Sasha, about which port this ship would actually dock at, because earlier the plan, according to the US Embassy inside Georgia, was for this ship, the Dallas, to dock at the Georgian port of Poti. But that was the plan for that was changed, probably because it's Poti where the Russian forces have set up checkpoints. They still occupy areas around that Georgian port, and so docking the US ship in that territory, in that port, may have brought it into direct contact with Russian forces on the ground. And so clearly a decision appears to have been taken at the Pentagon for the port to have been changed and to be changed further south to the Georgian port of Batumi, where there are no Russian forces present. So that's going on now, but clearly a very controversial kind of move here by the United States as they move to show their support for Georgia. And it comes just the day after, of course, the Russian President Dmitry Medvedev announced that he was going to recognize, that Russia was going to recognize the independence of those two breakaway regions inside Georgia, Abkhazia and South Ossetia. All that fighting earlier this month was about particularly South Ossetia. Russia now says that it acknowledges them, it recognizes them as independent states, despite the urging of the West, of the United States President, of European leaders as well. I sat down with Dmitry Medvedev earlier, the Russian president, and asked him whether this was meant, the recognition was meant as a snub to the West.
This is not any kind of challenge, by no means. That was our deliberate position. For 17 years, Russia has done its best to help restore Georgia's territorial integrity at all levels and within all international frameworks. This was the only opportunity to prevent the further escalation of the conflict, further bloodshed, and the killing of civilians. That's the first reason. The second reason is that all people have the right to self-determination. Our colleagues have repeated on more than one occasion, Kosovo is a special case, that's fine. But then South Ossetia and Abkhazia are special cases too.
Well, Dmitry Medvedev, the Russian president, making the point very clearly in his recognition of these two territories that Russia, under his leadership, is prepared to follow its own independent foreign policy line, even if that means isolation, even if that means antagonizing Europe and the United States.
Matthew, and with the build-up of presence on both sides in the region, talking about the ships particularly here, can the French brokered peace deal hold in the face of all this?
Well, I think it's likely to hold in the sense there are unlikely to be fresh outbreaks of hostilities between Georgian forces attempting to seize back into its control these breakaway territories of Abkhazia and South Ossetia. In that sense, yes, I think that the ceasefire will probably hold. But, of course, there's a big argument underway as to whether the recognition of Abkhazia and South Ossetia actually violates the ceasefire accords, because the sixth point in that ceasefire agreement that was brokered by the French president, remember, was that international talks should be held in order for the future status of Abkhazia and South Ossetia to be decided. Now, that's been superseded by events. The Russian president, as we mentioned, has gone ahead and recognized their independence as states anyhow. And so there's some degree of debate within the international community. Russia saying it doesn't violate the ceasefire, much of the rest of the international community saying the move of recognition does violate it.